The Walking Dead ran for 177 episodes across 11 seasons, and it all started with just six episodes that somehow built the entire foundation for over a decade of television. Today I'm breaking down every single season and everything that made them matter, starting with the one that changed horror TV forever. Season 1, 6 episodes. That's all it took. Most shows can't establish a single compelling character in 6 episodes, and The Walking Dead built an entire apocalypse. Season 1 premiered on Halloween night 2010, and from the very first frame, it was clear this wasn't just another zombie show. Rick Grimes wakes up from a coma in Harrison Memorial Hospital, and the world he knew is gone. No doctors, no nurses, no explanation, just bodies, darkness, and a cafeteria door with the words, "Don't open, dead inside," scrawled across it, which is, not the most reassuring thing to wake up to. But here's where the show immediately separates itself from every other zombie property. Rick's first real human contact isn't a soldier or a scientist, it's Morgan Jones and his son Dwayne, 2 survivors holed up in a neighbor's house. Morgan teaches Rick the new rules of the world, but he also reveals something that becomes the emotional thesis statement for the entire series. His wife Jenny was bitten. She turned. She's out there right now, shambling past their window every single night, and Morgan cannot bring himself to shoot her. That's it. That's the whole show in one scene. Love versus survival. Holding on versus letting go. Every major character decision across 177 episodes traces back to that exact tension. Rick's journey to Atlanta introduces the core group that would define the series. Glenn Rhee, the resourceful pizza delivery guy who saves Rick's life. Daryl Dixon, who wasn't even supposed to be a main character. Shane Walsh, Rick's best friend who'd been taking care of Lori and Carl while assuming Rick was dead. And Merle Dixon, who gets handcuffed to a roof and left behind. Great first impression for everyone involved. The season ends at the CDC, where a lone scientist named Dr. Edwin Jenner offers the group shelter, hot showers, and wine. For exactly one night, it feels like maybe someone has answers. Then Jenner reveals the building is designed to self-destruct, incinerating everything inside. Hope dangled, then destroyed. That's not just the CDC ending. That's the formula the show would repeat for the next decade. But if you think 6 episodes of world-building sounds intense, wait until you see what the show does with a full 16-episode season. Season 3. Up until this point, The Walking Dead was a zombie show. Walkers were the threat. Survival meant not getting bitten, and the biggest danger was whatever rotting corpse stumbled around the next corner. Season 3 threw all of that out the window. Premiering on October 14th, 2012, this season ran 16 episodes and introduced the character that fundamentally changed what the show was about. The Governor. Real name, Philip Blake, leader of Woodbury, Georgia, and one of the most unsettling villains in television history, not because of what he did to walkers, but because of what he did to people. Here's the thing about Woodbury. On the surface, it looked like paradise. Electricity, hot food, streets you could walk down without checking over your shoulder every 3 seconds. It had the illusion of pre-apocalyptic normalcy so convincing that you almost forgot the world had ended. And that was exactly the point, because the man running it was a cunning, manipulative, megalomaniacal sociopath who used that illusion like a weapon. The Governor didn't need walkers to be dangerous. He had charisma, intelligence, and zero moral compass, which is, not ideal. The character originally appeared in the Walking Dead comic number 27 back in April 2006, created by Robert Kirkman, Charlie Adlard, and Cliff Rathburn. But the TV adaptation took his particular brand of calculated evil and cranked it up to 11. He kept severed walker heads and fish tanks in his apartment like some kind of apocalyptic interior decorator. Yeah, I think the heads really tie the room together. Cool, that's also a thing that happened. But here's where it gets complicated. The Governor wasn't just a monster. He was a leader, a genuinely effective one. People followed him willingly because he made them feel safe. And that's what made the conflict with Rick's group so terrifying. It wasn't good versus evil in any simple sense. It was democracy versus authoritarianism, collective welfare versus fear-based control. Rick asked people what they thought. The Governor told people what to think. Both groups survived. Only one of them was free. Season 3 is where The Walking Dead stopped being about the dead and started being about the living. The walkers became set dressing, background radiation. The real threat was the person smiling at you across a dinner table while planning your execution. And every single season after this one built on that foundation. But if you think The Governor was bad, wait until you see what Season 4 does to the one safe place these people had left. Season 4. Season 4 is where The Walking Dead rips the safety blanket off and sets it on fire. The prison, which the group spent all of Season 3 fighting to keep, is finally functioning. They've got crops, a council, new survivors joining up. It's the closest thing to normal life anyone's had since the world ended, and naturally, it all falls apart. But here's the thing. It doesn't fall apart because of walkers. It doesn't fall apart because of some warlord at the gates. It falls apart because people start getting sick. A mysterious illness tears through the prison like wildfire, killing residents and turning them before anyone can figure out what's happening. The group that survived Woodbury, that fought off herds, that cleared an entire cell block of the undead with melee weapons, is now getting taken out by the flu, which is, not ideal. Daryl leads a desperate supply run to a veterinary college to find antibiotics, because that's where medicine comes from now. Not hospitals, not pharmacies, a vet school. The apocalypse really does humble you. The illness subplot is genuinely underrated. It proves that you don't need a villain with a tank to destroy a community. Sometimes a cough is enough. Over a dozen people die from the flu alone, and most of them never saw a single enemy combatant. They just got sick and didn't get better. Microscopic threats can dismantle elaborate social structures just as effectively as a bullet. But then the governor comes back, because of course he does. He rolls up with a new group, a new tank, and the same old god complex, and he lays siege to the prison. The battle is brutal. Herschel is executed. The fences come down. The walls crumble. And just like that, the one place that felt permanent is gone. 16 episodes. And the show teaches its audience a lesson it never lets them forget. No location is sacred. You can fortify, you can farm, you can build a council and hold elections and pretend civilization came back. None of it matters when the wrong person shows up with enough firepower and enough crazy. The back half of the season scatters everyone. Rick, Carl, and Michonne are out in the wilderness with nothing, eventually crossing paths with a group led by a man named Joe. Joe's crew operates on a simple philosophy: claim what you want, hurt who you want. The encounter turns violent fast, and it's a cold reminder that the road between settlements is every bit as lethal as the settlements themselves. Season 4 premieres on October 13th, 2013, runs 16 episodes, and leaves the group with 0 homes, 0 infrastructure, and 0 illusions about safety. The prison is rubble, the community is fractured, and every single survivor is wandering towards something they heard about on a radio, a place called Terminus. If you think that sounds promising, you clearly haven't been paying attention, and Season 5 proves exactly why. Season 5, Terminus, is one of the greatest bait and switches in the entire series, and it works because the setup is so painfully simple. Signs along the railway lines, radio broadcasts, sanctuary for all, community for all. Those who arrive, survive. That's all it took to lure desperate people down the tracks to their deaths. Here's the thing. Terminus wasn't always a slaughterhouse. It started as a genuine sanctuary, founded by a guy named Gareth, his brother Alex, and their mother Mary. They actually meant it. They opened their doors, took people in, and tried to build something real. Then a group of bandits showed up, occupied the place, and did unspeakable things to the residents. So Gareth led an uprising, imprisoned the bandits, and then ate them. Not metaphorically, literally ate them. After that, the entire philosophy of Terminus flipped. The people who once welcomed strangers adopted a new motto: you're the butcher or you're the cattle. Warnings scrawled across the walls read, "Never again. We first. Always." Every new arrival was either recruited or processed. And by processed, I mean butchered and served as dinner. Mary, the woman you see cheerfully grilling mystery meat every time she appears on screen, yeah, that's not pork, which is, not ideal. But what makes the Terminus arc genuinely tragic instead of just horrifying is that these people didn't start evil. The apocalypse broke them. They tried being good, got absolutely destroyed for it, and decided never again. Completely understandable human response, even if the end result is feeding strangers to other strangers. And then the show immediately introduces the exact opposite outcome. The Alexandria Safe Zone is a walled community near Washington, D.C., originally established by the military for politicians during the initial outbreak. Same apocalypse, same world, same walkers. Completely different result. Where Terminus turned inward and devoured itself, Alexandria maintained running water, electricity, and people who still cared about book clubs. Episode 12, remember? Shows Rick sitting down for an interview with Deanna Monroe, and it's one of the most surreal moments in the entire show. This man has been eating squirrels and killing cannibals for months, and now someone's asking him about his professional background like it's a job application. attention. So, Rick, tell me about yourself. Ma'am, I bit a man's throat out with my teeth last week. Season 5 runs 16 episodes and functions as the show's most important transitional stretch. The central question it keeps asking is a brutal one. Does the apocalypse reveal who you really are? Or does it fundamentally change you? Terminus says it changes you. Alexandria says it doesn't have to. Rick's group, standing somewhere in between, covered in blood and barely holding it together, isn't sure which answer scares them more. Because if Alexandria is real, if safety actually exists, then everything they did to survive out there starts to look a lot less justified. But if you think finding Alexandria meant things were finally looking up, wait until you meet the guy with the baseball bat. Season 7. This is the one that broke people. Season 7 premiered on October 23, 2016, and it opened with what is arguably the most emotionally devastating premiere in the show's entire history. The episode is called The Day Will Come When You Won't Be, and it delivers on that title in the worst way possible. After an entire off-season of speculation about who Negan picked, the answer finally comes. It's Abraham Ford. Negan selects him and bludgeons him to death with Lucille, a barbed wire-wrapped baseball bat named after Negan's wife, who committed suicide after battling cancer. So yes, the man named his murder weapon after his dead wife. That's the kind of person we're dealing with here. But one death wasn't enough. When Daryl, fueled by pure rage, lunges forward and punches Negan in the face, Negan decides that kind of behavior needs consequences. So he turns around and beats Glenn Rhee to death, right in front of Maggie, right in front of everyone. Glenn's death mirrors his death in the original comic series almost exactly, which means comic readers saw it coming and it still destroyed them. That's how brutal this scene is. Knowing doesn't help. Here's the thing about Negan that makes him genuinely unsettling. Before the apocalypse, this guy was a high school gym teacher. Not a soldier, not a criminal, a gym teacher. The kind of guy who made teenagers run laps and yelled at kids for not trying hard enough in dodgeball. And somehow, the end of the world turned that person into a tyrannical warlord commanding an organized military force that extracts tribute from every community in the region like a feudal king collecting taxes from peasant villages. Which is, not ideal. The Saviors operate as exactly that, a feudal power structure where surrounding communities function as vassal states, handing over half their supplies in exchange for not being murdered. It's a protection racket on a civilizational scale, and Negan enforces it with theatrical violence and a leather jacket. The bat, named after his dead wife, is the centerpiece of every interaction. He doesn't just use Lucille, he performs with her. Every swing is a statement, every threat is a monologue. And the real horror of Season 7 isn't the deaths themselves. It's what comes after. Rick, the man who has fought his way through walkers, cannibals, and a literal psychopath with a fish tank full of heads, just accepts it. He kneels. He submits. He becomes Negan's errand boy, collecting supplies for the Saviors and delivering them on schedule. The audience watches the strongest character in the show get completely broken, and that helplessness is the point. You feel exactly what Rick's group feels. There's no fighting back. There's no clever plan. There's just survival under someone else's boot while secretly, quietly, desperately trying to figure out how to resist without getting another friend's skull caved in. But if Season 7 was about learning to live under a tyrant's rule, the show wasn't done evolving. Not even close. Season 9. Removing the main character of a television show in its 9th season is one of the most insane creative gambles in TV history, and The Walking Dead actually did it. Season 9 premiered on October 7th, 2018, with 16 episodes and a new showrunner who clearly woke up one morning and chose violence against the status quo. Because this season doesn't just shuffle the deck, it flips the table, sets the cards on fire, and builds an entirely new table 6 years in the future. Let's start with the elephant in the room. Rick Grimes, the guy whose face has been on every poster since 2010, leaves the show. Andrew Lincoln departs in episode 5, titled What Comes After, and the way it happens is genuinely wild. Rick finds himself completely surrounded by walkers. Zero escape routes. The kind of situation where you start mentally writing a eulogy. But then shots ring out, a helicopter descends, and Jadis negotiates his rescue. Just like that, Rick Grimes is airlifted out of his own show to an unknown destination. The group thinks he's dead. The audience knows he's not. And suddenly, the apocalypse feels bigger than anything we've seen before because who has helicopters? What organization is operating at that scale? 9 seasons in, and the show reveals that everything we've watched might be a tiny corner of a much larger world, which is, a lot to process. But the creative insanity doesn't stop there. After Rick's departure, the show jumps forward 6 years. Not a few months, not a quick winter. 6 entire years get skipped, and when the dust settles, everything looks different. Judith Grimes is now a capable young survivor carrying her dad's revolver and her brother's hat. Alexandria has transformed into a functioning settlement with sustainable agriculture, education systems, and actual governance structures. You can see years of progress just by looking at the place. The time jump works because it trusts the audience to fill in the gaps. Instead of showing us 6 years of community meetings and crop rotations, the show skips straight to the results. New fortifications, changed landscapes, children who've grown up entirely in this world. It communicates progress without a single exposition dump. And then, because this show cannot let anyone be happy for more than 5 minutes, the season introduces Alpha and the Whisperers. These are survivors who wear masks made from walker skin and move among the dead, essentially becoming part of the herds they control. They represent something the communities haven't faced before, an enemy that rejects civilization entirely, not a dictator building a kingdom, not a warlord demanding tribute, a group that believes humanity should abandon everything it's rebuilt and return to animal instinct. The Whisperer's introduction is the season's way of saying that 6 years of peace meant nothing. You can build walls, plant crops, elect leaders, and teach children to read, and none of it matters if the next threat doesn't play by any of the rules you've established. Season 9 reinvented The Walking Dead by removing its center of gravity and proving the show could still stand. But if you think losing Rick was the hardest thing these communities would face, the Whisperers are just getting started. Season 10. The Whisperers are, without exaggeration, the creepiest villains this show ever produced. And it's not particularly close. Every previous antagonist operated in recognizably human ways. The Whisperers wear the faces of the dead. They walk among herds wearing masks and clothing made from walker skin, blending in so seamlessly that you literally cannot tell them apart from the real thing. They move in silence, guiding massive herds like shepherds, and you never know where they are or when they'll strike. That's the real horror of Season 10. It's not just the body count, it's the uncertainty. The season picks up several months after Alpha's massacre at the community fair, and the communities are rattled in a way we haven't seen before. The governor was a dictator you could point to on a map. Negan had a base you could march on. Alpha operates like a force of nature with no fixed position and no predictable pattern. The communities don't know where the next attack will come from. They don't know how many Whisperers exist. They don't even know if the herd shambling past their walls has human intelligence guiding it. That psychological pressure creates a kind of terror that no amount of walls or weapons can fix. And Alpha's philosophy makes it worse, because she's not just trying to conquer them, she's trying to prove them wrong. Her entire worldview is built on the idea that civilization is a lie, that humans are animals pretending to be something better, and the apocalypse simply revealed the truth. She wants humanity to abandon its structures, its rules, its communities, and return to raw primal instinct, which is, not ideal for the people who spent years building functioning towns with agriculture and schools for their kids. Alpha doesn't want to rule them. She wants to erase the very concept of what they've built. But here's where Season 10 gets genuinely satisfying. The communities finally stop operating as isolated settlements and start coordinating collective defense. Alexandria, Hilltop, and the former Kingdom survivors recognize that individually they're vulnerable, but together they can mount a real resistance. It's the first time the show fully commits to a united front, and it works because we've watched these communities fail separately for years. The season's biggest payoff is Alpha's death, and the person who kills her is Negan. The same guy who bashed Glenn's skull in with a baseball bat is now the one who takes out the Whisperer's leader, mirroring her death straight from the comics. It's a full-circle redemption moment that somehow feels earned despite everything he's done. Negan infiltrated the Whisperers, gained Alpha's trust, and then ended her. The war's cost doesn't stop there either. Earl Sutton dies just 2 episodes earlier. Gamma is killed a few episodes after. The losses are spread across the season, making the toll feel relentless rather than concentrated. 22 episodes is a lot of Walking Dead, and the season stretched from October 2019 all the way to October 2022, thanks to pandemic delays and bonus episodes that kept extending the run. But the extended runtime gave the Whisperer war room to breathe in a way previous conflicts didn't always get. The tension builds slowly, the psychological horror has time to settle in, and when the resolution finally comes, it lands. But if you think defeating the Whisperers meant the survivors survivors could finally relax, the final season had other plans, entirely. Season 11. After 10 seasons of fighting for survival, the show decides to ask one final question. What happens when survival isn't enough anymore? Season 11 premiered on August 22, 2021, and didn't wrap up until November 20th, 2022. 24 episodes, the largest season in the entire series' history, and it needed every single one of them because the final chapter introduces something the group has never encountered before: a society that actually works. The Commonwealth is massive. Tens of thousands of people living under organized government, military enforcement, class structure, the whole thing. It's led by Governor Pamela Milton, and on paper, it's everything the survivors have been fighting to build since season 1. There's food, there's medicine, there's infrastructure. But here's the thing, there's also inequality. The Commonwealth runs on a rigid class system where your pre-apocalypse job determines your post-apocalypse status. If you were a doctor before the world ended, congratulations, you're still important. If you were a janitor, well, you're still a janitor, just with more walkers. And that creates the show's ultimate philosophical problem. Do you accept safety if it comes with a boot on your neck? Commonwealth forces absorb Alexandria, Hilltop, and Oceanside, not through warfare, but through bureaucratic takeover. People who survived the Governor, Terminus, Negan, and the Whisperers are suddenly filling out paperwork and following someone else's rules, which is, not ideal. But Pamela Milton makes a critical mistake. She doubles down on control instead of compromise. When dissent grows among the lower classes, she responds with scare tactics, deliberately using walker herds to terrify people into compliance. The problem with ruling through fear is that eventually people get more afraid of staying than leaving. A revolution breaks out, and when a massive walker herd breaches the Commonwealth's walls thanks to Pamela's own reckless tactics, the whole system collapses in on itself. Pamela is overthrown and arrested. Ezekiel Sutton becomes the new governor. Mercer steps in as lieutenant governor. Carol Pelletier, the same woman who started this series as a terrified abuse survivor hiding behind her husband, becomes director of operations for the entire Commonwealth. Let that sink in for a second. The new leadership implements equal and democratic policies. No more class system. No more inherited status. And then comes the detail that reframes everything. The reformed Commonwealth allies with the Civic Republic of Philadelphia, a city-state with a population exceeding 250,000 people. The group spent years thinking they were among the last people on Earth, fighting over settlements with a few hundred residents. And the whole time there was a functioning city of 250,000 people out there. I don't know what to tell you. The series finale, Rest in Peace, aired on November 20th, 2022. It's the 177th episode. 12 years of television, and that's where it ends. Not with a last stand, not with one final walker horde, but with the messy, imperfect, deeply human beginning of actual civilization. Think about where this started. One man waking up alone in a hospital in King County, Georgia. No idea what happened. No idea if anyone he loved was still alive. And 177 episodes later, the show closes on an alliance of tens of thousands of people actively choosing to build something better. Not perfect, not safe, but better. 12 years, 11 seasons, countless deaths that still hurt to think about. And the answer to the show's longest-running question turns out to be pretty simple. Survival was never the point. It was just the price of admission. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.